First Lady, Rosalind Carter, said, "There are only 4 kinds of people in the world. Those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers." My title this morning is a play on the title of a book, They Forgot, Yet We Remember. It is a collection of stories of hope, love, and remembrances. So today I want to share some facts, some love, and some remembrances. Progressive mental deterioration in old age has been recognized and described throughout history. However, it was not until the early 20th century that a collection of brain cell abnormalities was specifically identified. In the year 2006 marked the 100th anniversary of a small medical meeting in Germany where Dr. Alois Alzheimer was presenting a haunting case of a 51-year-old woman who had rapidly failing memory, confusion, trouble expressing her thoughts, and unfounded suspicions about her family and hospital staff. The woman died after 4 years of steady decline that left her bedridden and mute. Dr. Alzheimer performed an autopsy. In her brain, he found dramatic shrinkage, widespread dead cells, and 2 kinds of microscopic deposits he had never seen before. All in all, he wrote in his report, "We are faced with a peculiar disease process. This mysterious disease soon entered the medical literature as Alzheimer's disease, and the unusual brain deposits became known as plaques and tangles." In 1915, Dr. Alzheimer himself died at the age of 51, never suspecting that his encounter with a 51-year-old woman would one day touch the lives of millions and drive a massive international research effort. Quoting from a pamphlet put out by the Alzheimer's Association, "Alzheimer's disease is a progressive and ultimately fatal disease that destroys brain cells, causing memory loss and problems with thinking and behaviors severe enough to disrupt daily life. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, a general term for memory loss, and accounts for 50 to 80% of all cases. Although there is currently no cure, help is available for those living with Alzheimer's disease and related forms of dementia. Caring for someone with dementia presents a unique set of challenges, and it can be extremely stressful for millions of family caregivers. 1 in 8 people over age 65 develops Alzheimer's disease, and as our population ages, the incidence of Alzheimer's is expected to increase dramatically if no cure is found. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. Quoting Paula Brown's PhD, Executive Director of Garrison Institute of Aging, Texas Tech University Health Center, in a report published in 2009. Alzheimer's disease today affects as many as 5.2 million people in the United States. This number is a 10% increase from the previous estimate of 4.5 million, and it is projected to sharply increase to 8 million by 2030. It is expected that the United States alone will see 16 million cases by 2050, and additionally, 10 million baby boomers will develop Alzheimer's in their lifetime. Statistics show that every 71 seconds, someone in America develops Alzheimer's disease. By mid-century, someone will develop it every 33 seconds, and 1 out of every 8 people aged 65 and older has it, and nearly 1 out of every 2 people over age 85 has it. 70% of people with Alzheimer's and other dementias live at home where friends and family take care of them. Currently, the direct and indirect cost of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias amounts to more than $148 billion annually. 10 million caregivers, whether employee or family member, provide 8.5 billion hours of care, valued at $83 billion in By the year 2030, Alzheimer's alone will cost $400 billion a year. Those who've come in contact with Alzheimer's understand that it is a disease that affects the entire family, mentally, physically, and financially. Scientific research continues to make significant progress in understanding the disease and may one day lead to a cure. Lifestyle changes, such as physical and mental exercise and a heart-healthy diet, may decrease the risk of developing it. FDA-approved prescription drugs treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's, but does not cure it. Quoting from a book that Jane Hardwick gave me entitled Ambiguous Loss, Learning to Live with Unresolved Grief by Pauline Voss, it says, Alzheimer's disease victims never recover, never stop getting worse. They cling to the barest threads of who they once were. A teacher tries to work a child's puzzle. A craftsman plays with toys that remind him of his tools. All achievements are forgotten and faces of loved ones lost. There are endless days before death comes. Alzheimer's may be the cruelest disease. I am having to live and learn how to live with ambiguous loss. My husband, Howard, suffers from dementia. Howard and I realized in 2006 that his memory was fading. His driving was not so great, and things were not quite right. The first diagnosis, cognitive impairment, was given in spring of 2007. Medication was first prescribed by our primary care doctor, and as his symptoms progressed, I contacted a neurologist who, after testing, prescribed a second medication. The meds have slowed the progress, but not stopped the disease. The neurologist said that Howard is not a true Alzheimer, but has to do with the frontal lobe of the brain. Frontal temporal dementia was arrived at through an MRI, and it is very similar to Alzheimer's. Many times you cannot know until death and the brain being analyzed at that time if it actually is Alzheimer's. The treatment is basically the same whether the diagnosis is cognitive impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's. Initially, Howard knew he was failing. He realized that his financial abilities were not what they previously had been, and thankfully, he found us a fantastic money manager. Our family can now look back to about 10 years ago when the very first symptoms of the disease were beginning. Howard had colon cancer, and he underwent surgery, and the surgeon came out to the waiting room and said, "Your husband came through the surgery fine, but his heart was slightly erratic, so the cardiologist will meet you in the recovery room." And the cardiologist appeared, and she said she would put him on a heart monitor and run some tests. And because of this, instead of going on the surgical floor, he went to the heart floor. And he got in trouble. On about the 5th day following surgery, Brenda and Jean and I had been spending nights with him, and we decided that he said he was okay to stay by himself. So when I arrived first thing in the morning, he said he hadn't felt good all night, and he goes in the bathroom, and he starts throwing a file, and I realized he was standing in a pool of blood. And I rang for the nurse, and we realized that he had split his incision, the entire incision, from just above the belly button all the way down to his groin. And a hospital infection either set in or was already there. While still in the hospital, Howard did a lot of hallucinating. He saw squirrels everywhere. And at that time, we had a pecan tree, and the squirrels were eating the nuts. Upon release from the hospital, home health came the entire summer, twice a day. We were the first and the last on the route. And she was a wonderful person because she never told the doctors that he was really actually up and around and driving by that time. But she came twice a day to dress this enormous wound on his belly. And at the end of the summer, 2 more surgeries were required. A skin graft to close the wound and a hernia operation to repair his belly. After the first surgery, once he was home, he insisted on getting BBs for one of our son's old guns that had sat out in the garage for about 30 years. And he went out and bought the BBs. And you think he could shoot a squirrel? Get one? No way. He couldn't. So we bought a trap, and we caught a few squirrels, and we released them into a better neighborhood. Candlewood. His memory started fading shortly after the 3 surgery. His driving abilities started to go downhill. One night he got lost coming home from Reed Bill's home. Somehow he did make it home. Giving up driving was one of the hardest things for him. It took a number of sessions with the psychologist to convince him that it really was necessary. For men especially, giving up driving is a major issue. And I can't tell you how many times in our support group I have heard family members almost in tears because their loved ones insist on driving. Many of you have noticed for many years knew Howard when he was a successful leader in whatever he was doing. For those of you who have met us fairly recently, I would like to tell you about him. He was the city manager in 3 cities, Littleton, Colorado, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma City. He was a regional director for the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And he was president of one of the largest food manufacturing companies in the world. And he spent his last 14 years of employment as a senior vice president at Harris Methodist Hospital. He was president twice of 2 UU congregations, including Westside. He served on the Southwestern UU Conference and on the North Texas Association of Universalist Societies Board and Endowment Committee until very, very recently. He helped pass and establish the 911 system in Fort Worth, and it was because we had a fire in our house 30 years or so ago, and we did not have fire alarms at all. He wound up chairing the 911 board. He, as well as chairing the Ambulance Authority Board. And one of his proudest accomplishments was the formation of the community hospice, where he chaired their board for many years, I think about 10 years. He was named Volunteer of the Year by the United Way in the year 2000. He also is a very special husband who cares very much for all of our children and their families. He is still the same man that I married 59 years ago, and if you have been in our home, you know we keep these memories alive with all his plaques, cartoons, and other mementos. It is how he taught me to be strong. He encouraged me to do things I never dreamt possible, and if he were here today, he would encourage me to present this program. The children's story that was presented this morning tells it like it now is. He has trouble finding words, so therefore they don't always make sense, and he quite often does not have much to say. Night times are very difficult as he does something called sundowning. He gets very easily disoriented at night, not able to find his way to the bedroom. He needs assistance dressing and undressing and getting into his PJs. One night, he dressed and undressed, he dressed and undressed, he dressed and undressed 3 times. Recently, he has his days and nights fixed up, waking at 3 or 4 a.m. and sleeping during the day. I was familiar with dementia. My grandmother and my mother spent their last years in nursing homes suffering from it. I really thought I might be the one to come down with it, not him. Well, I might very well have it. In fact, they say that you may have it for about 10 years or more until it becomes apparent. So if you notice me behaving peculiarly, would you please let my children know? We have a very supportive family, and through all of our efforts, we try to keep Howard functioning and staying at home. Until recently, our daughter Brenda popped corn with him every Wednesday morning at John Peter Smith Hospital. That wasn't until November when she realized that it was not working. She also took him out to lunch once a week. Our daughter in Austin provided her with restaurant gift certificates in order to do so. Howard was going 2 days a week to the West Alzheimer's daycare, and on Friday mornings to a social engagement program at the Alzheimer's office. This gives me some much needed me time that I could actually do things on my own. My daughter Debbie and her husband Mark came and spent a long weekend with him so that I could visit my sister. I tried to avoid caregiver burnout. A number of our friends took him to lunch. Our neighbors were wonderful about making sure that he had a ride on Tuesday mornings to the men's breakfast, and they also assisted him when he got turned around, going in the wrong direction, trying to get back to our apartment. Keeping him engaged was so important. Our family is so very close, and we try to get together at least once a year. And this past summer, we went on a cruise. All of our children, grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren cruised to Mexico. Aaron and I decided a few years ago that rather than leaving the kids an inheritance, we would rather treat them to things while we were alive. And though Howard was limited to what he could and could not do on the cruise, he enjoyed seeing the fun everyone was having. 33 went with us, 28 being immediate family that we paid for. I don't pay for significant others. Not until the ring is on his finger. This trip was especially meaningful to us, as 2 days after the cruise, our son and daughter-in-law left for Zimbabwe, where they plan to live until Mike retires. And Mike is 55, so I guess that means 10 years they're going to be there. Mike, our youngest child, raised UU, rebelled. He didn't want to run wild or do drugs. Instead, he became a fairly fundamental Christian. He and Robin have been missionaries for over 15 years. We keep in touch with them through Facebook, email, and when they get good connection with FaceTime. And we really, really love them. With assistance, I had hoped to be able to keep Howard at home as long as possible. He comes from a long-lived family and basically is in fairly good health. But as many of you know, last month, his care became too much for me and went to live at the James L. West Alzheimer Center. He loves to have visitors, but he may know you, and he may be asleep because he was asleep 4 times this last week when I went to visit. Much research continues on dementia and Alzheimer's. Baylor University came to our support group with a study they were doing. They had a questionnaire that I answered, and one part of it dealt with religion, and I'm sure that I skewed their results. I have been wondering how I can call myself religious when I'm not sure if there is a God, at least not the Christian concept of one. I don't read the Bible on a regular basis, and I probably meditate rather than pray. And I have never been concerned about an afterlife. My Reformed Jewish upbringing taught me that if you live the good life here on earth, you need not worry about the afterlife. Because of Howard's advanced condition, we were not able to participate in the entire study, but I hope to find out what their study found. The Alzheimer's Association has been a wonderful resource to us. The Fort Worth office has pointed me to support groups, a REACH program that has provided counseling for me, a social engagement program for Howard. They have wonderful pamphlets on legal issues, and thanks to them and their encouragement, I have durable power of attorney and medical power of attorney over Howard, and thanks to John Barnes for doing all that legal paperwork for me. Twice a year, they have a community symposium with guest speakers that is fantastic. One section is for caregivers and another is for professionals working in the field. I've now been to 4 of them, and this past year they asked me to be on a panel presented for the caregivers. And one of the questions that was asked, and that I answered first and the 2 others agreed with me, I found that the change in the relationship from husband-wife that has now become mother-child to be the most significant and challenging change. If any of you are interested in attending one of the symposium, please let me know and I will get you a brochure for the next one. The Alzheimer Association also has a hotline should a crisis situation arise. They have also provided me with lots of information on legal issues. And you might have observed that Howard and I wear bracelets. These are medical alert bracelets, and they contain, they have a number that you call, and on file is an emergency number of one of our children, our medications, and our allergies. And in addition, I just learned that the James L. West Center offers classes for early stage dementia that covers so many things. If you have a loved one or friend who think they have memory problems, or if you suspect that you might have memory problems, please get in touch with the Alzheimer's Association. I wish we would have found them much earlier than we did. There is nothing to be ashamed of, and we have found that sharing our story helps. One of the things that we as Unitarian Universalists believe is there is worth and dignity in every person. Howard still has worth and dignity, and there is much we can still learn from him. This congregation has been our extended family from its inception. You are as much a support group for both of us as any of the Alzheimer groups we have attended. Life is a journey, and we have just started on a new path. We love you for your support and acceptance, and ask for your continued support and love. Now, please rise, and we have changed the closing hymn to number 354. We laugh and cry. Can we sing all four verses this time?